Hey everybody, this is Joe Block, the Greyhawk Grognard, here on a rare live stream, which I might be doing a few more of if this works out. With me, we have Don Semora from WizardCon and Roger Rebisz from the Central New York RPG Con. Both of these gentlemen agreed to be on tonight. They have both started new gaming conventions this year. In fact, within 6 weeks of each other, I was honored to be a special guest at each of their conventions. And because both of their cons went so well and they're kind of a little bit similar, although geographically spaced out, I thought it'd be a good idea to have them both on and kind of discuss the whole con experience. So here we are. Thank you, Don and Roger, for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me. Yeah.
So let's just quickly start off with introductions. Don, give me 90 seconds of who you are and why we care.
Oh, well, I'm Don Semora. I run WizardCon, first year convention this year in April. We're going to be doing it next year again, same weekend of April. I own and operate Wizard Tower Games and Wizard Tower Publishing, which is a game publishing business. That's basically the cliff notes on me.
Roger?
Yeah. So I'm glad you had Don go first. So I'm Roger Rebisz. I'm from Central New York, and I decided to start a convention up here because there really wasn't anything nearby. So other than that, I'm, a nobody, I guess. So
Awesome. All right. So the first and most obvious question is, why would you want to run a gaming convention? What is it that, because you've both been gamers for a long time, but what specifically got the bug in your ear to do a gaming convention? And we're going to go chronologically because Don, yours was first. Yours was in April, right?
Yeah.
And so let's go with you first. What made you want to do a convention?
Well, what made me want to do a convention was I've been gaming since 1977. That's when I first started playing D&D. And I've been to many conventions. I kind of got out of the convention world for a long time because of life. And then me and my wife discussed it. We wanted to do a game. We decided to start a game convention because in the greater Battle Creek, Kalamazoo area in Michigan, there are none. There's just no gaming conventions in Michigan of any substance. So you can go to like the big guys, like there's like the Comic-Cons, the Grand Rapids Comic-Con, but you can't even get vendor tables are $500 for an 8x8 there. There's a 5-year waiting, term to get tickets. So they just become these big, magnets of conventions. So we just decided to start something small, see where it went. The area needed it.
And Roger, same question.
yeah.
What got
So,
you into this?
yeah. So kind of similar. We, for years just going to different conventions and just it's always travel. 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. Just driving. All these cons and eventually driving down to a convention. I was talking to a buddy of mine and he mentioned, yeah, we should start something, and I was kind of just dove right into it. And there's like 20 conventions a year around here that are all pop culture related, anime, retro video game, all that stuff. And they all advertise, oh yeah, D&D or tabletop gaming, and it's it's a couple tables of somebody running a 5e game, so
In some room off the hall somewhere.
Yeah, a room off the hall or a dark corner, or there's a hand-drawn sign, you got to follow a map. But yeah, and I was like, what, we don't have anything where it's just tabletop gaming, just doing RPGs here. And I couldn't figure out why, and so I figured, what the hell, I'll run it and it'll either turn out really good or horrible. And spoilers, it turned out fantastic, as both of you already know. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So Roger, let's stay with you for a second.
Yeah.
How many people ended up coming for the weekend? I just want to get. I
So
want to give people kind of a sense
yeah,
of scale here. What we're talking about.
so we pre-sold, pre-issued 124 badges, and then walk-ins we had 78. So we had a total of 202.
Nice. All right. And Don, what did your gate end up being?
Our total was 341. We had about 30 walk-ins, but we had about 50, I think 50 or 56 pre-sales not show up. So probably right around over the course of the entire weekend, 250 to 300, right around there.
Okay, so roughly in the same,
Yeah.
not exactly Gary Con, but not exactly,
Yeah.
Me and my buddies getting together, uh,
Yeah.
for the weekend.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
that was
awesome.
really the the expectation was I really assumed that 50 people would show up and I'd, end up losing a lot of money and, still enjoy it and have a blast. But yeah, I guess it really shows it was needed, around here. So,
Mhm.
So I just put up a comment from Mark Hunt, who
yeah.
we all know is Mr. Gangbusters,
Yep.
and he says more OSR conventions are always needed, and that's
Yeah.
actually something I wanted to get at with you guys. Did
Mhm.
you actually set out to do an OSR convention, or did you just want to do a gaming convention in general, and it just happened to skew OSR heavy?
I targeted OSR because if you notice this, you were at mine. You notice the special guests that I pulled were all OSR based special guests. So I really wanted OSR. That was my main push.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me,
Same.
Eric, Frank, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was definitely the same. I definitely wanted to try and run, an OSR, an older, kind of gaming convention. I know that there's a lot of people locally that play 5e and whatnot, and I wasn't gonna exclude that
Oh
or
no,
anything,
not at
but
all.
what I really wanted to see was the 5e players come in and see, hey, there's other games out there, there's other systems, there's other things that might be better for what they want to do in a game, and they just don't know it exists because they just go with the name brand stuff.
Yeah.
And I've noticed
And
a lot of the YouTube channels that I watch, they do emphasize that is like,
yeah,
yeah, if you don't like what Wizards of the Coast is doing, or if you don't like 5e, there's a ton of other games out there, or Warhammer
right,
or
Mhm.
whatever. There's more. The hobby's bigger
right.
than that.
Yeah.
And it seems like people don't, which is strange to me, because there's so much out there. And I mean, I understand the market, and whatnot is, for the prime product or whatever is huge. They have a lot bigger outreach, being bigger company and stuff. But I think that there's enough. I would think that there's enough OSR stuff out there where everybody would know that it exists. But,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts. How did you go about finding the venue? How did you go about selecting vendors and guests and stuff like that? We started with Don before. Let's start with Roger this time.
oh boy, so yeah, so the venue, my buddy Jason, we who kind of is the one that pushed this idea into my head, to finally do it. I started looking around and started trying to find anywhere within 10, 20 miles of here, and we made a list and we went to hotel after hotel and different venues, a couple colleges, and just wrote everything down, how big the rooms were, how much stuff was, and ultimately we narrowed it down to a hotel. Well, we narrowed it down that we wanted it to be at a hotel. Just pros and cons. I've been to a bunch of conventions. I love staying on site. I can't stand going to a convention where you're staying at a hotel
Yep.
and you're a couple miles away, or even if the hotel's right across the street from the convention center, that's one thing.
If you
But
can walk.
if you can walk, but if it's in a bad time of year and there's weather or rain or snow or whatever, and it's too far to walk and you got to drive, it's a pain. You got to get into a car, you got to walk to your car, and you got to drive, even if it's a quarter mile, half a
Mhm.
mile, and then park and then walk through the whatever, snow, ice, or whatever it is. or even just finding a place to park. It's a pain. So I was really adamant. I need to find a place, that has rooms available, that has space. So that really, really narrowed down, my choices to a couple different places.
Mhm.
So then we settled on the hotel that we did, and I'm kind of glad that we did. The service and everything worked out just perfect, I think.
How about the vendors and what was your process, for selecting your guests? Because I know I was a guest. So
Well, yeah. So, I talked to a lot of people at different conventions, and, basically I wanted to try and get guests that had kind of, an outreach and a following, and I tried to like space it out. It's hard in the OSR. Everybody kind of has a similar outreach, as far as like their audience is very, very similar, um, but yeah, so I mean, you obviously you have some outreach and stuff available, and you have your AD&D, which is fantastic. You have a game, you have the YouTube channel, and I mean, so there's a lot of things there that maybe people don't follow you on YouTube. Maybe they're interested in different OSR games, or like the miniatures game, which I thought was fantastic, but things like that. So that's kind of what I looked for. So something, that I can get it to promote itself, what I mean? I guess. So,
like
and
hitting
of
the
course
guests
we'd
that
love to have you
are
back
going
next
to
year.
give you, give you some more reach and get the word out.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially year one. Cause I think that's like a big important thing. Cause I've seen a lot of conventions that get to, even year like 4, 5, 6, and they're still at 150 people. And I think it's because they don't have, the outreach. Maybe they started with 30, 40 people and they just slowly kind of naturally grow, which is fine. But, with the hotel and everything where I was at, it was like, financially, I couldn't do it. I was prepared to take a loss for 3 years, but I can't take a loss for 5 years, 6 years.
As I tell you, there are cons around here that I go to that I've been going to for 15 years, 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
and they're smaller than
Yeah.
what you guys put together
Mhm.
on year
Yeah.
one.
And
So
I
yeah,
can't see how they can sustain that. I mean, I guess if you've got a cheap enough venue, you can kind of get away with it, but just the way I ended up and just the things that I wanted, I just couldn't have something small, I guess.
and the vendors, were they just all local people, or did you rope them
Um,
in from a ways? What's the
I don't know. You consider yourself local, Joe?
No, as a matter of fact, a 4-hour drive is not local.
Um,
So, and
that's
remember, I was
local,
not a
right?
vendor. You were kind enough to give me
Well,
a
no,
table, but
right, sure. Yeah, right. I mean, I wanted to take care of my guests because I know that they went out of the way to promote and to help out and introduce me to other people and get the word out. So I mean, I wanted to, so if there's something you wanted to sell, I'm like, yeah, here's your table. Do what you want to, you know what I mean? Sell stuff, take a nap on it, do whatever you want to do with it. It's your table. But yeah, no, a lot of the vendors are just people that I met from other conventions. There's a local gaming store that was there. There
yeah, they had
was,
some actually really interesting stuff that I picked up. Yeah.
oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. That's, Dream Castle. And then the bookstore that was there, she runs, the one in the corner there, the Treehouse, Reading and Art Center. It's a children's bookstore, but, I don't know if I've mentioned this a couple times, but my wife works there part-time. So she offered to help out and stuff. And, and she said, well, yeah, we'll get a booth, but like, I got kids books. Like, what do you think we should sell? So I print out a copy of Appendix N and gave it to her and said, here you
Yeah.
go. So she ordered a bunch of Appendix N books and stuff. And I think they did great, and then there's
great idea.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know what else. I figured, well, it's an OSR con, right? Like this is a list of like books that we consider, from our Bible, right? Like, so it worked out, in a local comics shop. Ravenswood was there. Al, the owner of that, he like helped out from the beginning with hooking me up with an artist and everything to get that done. So, And then, everybody else is just, other local smaller vendors that, I've run into or talked to and whatnot. The Arduin guys, you saw their setup. Their setup was
The setup
absolutely
was freaking amazing.
amazing. Oh my God. It was crazy. And I even, those guys are so great. And I gotta say, like, they're on the phone with me saying, listen, we've got these banners. We need like a 20-foot wide thing, and we're gonna have 8-foot tall banners and like a big U-shaped walk-in thing. And I had to keep telling them, guys, I'm looking at max 200 people, like 20. There's only 2 zeros there. Like, what? And they're like, no, we want to support you, and we're going to do this, and this is going to be great. And I mean, their setup is fantastic, and they say they're coming back every year forever.
Cool.
So, I told them I don't think I can give them any more space. That's I don't know, you know. But no, so they've been great. Everybody's just really. I don't know if I'm going long form here, longer than I should.
I don't have a date tonight.
Yeah, me either. So, but yeah, that was just talking to people, and I talked to a lot of vendors, and they were interested in not only just helping me out, but helping to grow the community, and I think that was important, and so that was part of it, that was a big thing, because that's all I want to do, right? Is just, I want to make this, not huge. I don't want to get too big, but I want to grow to a point where this can kind of sustain itself, and it's going to be, great, I think. And that's it. Yeah, the Arduin guys are awesome. Yeah, the booth was amazing. Their minis
The
are
miniatures
amazing.
were off the hook, man. They were amazing.
I bought some of the I don't know what their name is, but the gorillas with the beaks and the tentacle arms and stuff.
Yeah.
So those will be in my campaign next Sunday. Spoilers to my play group, but
Grandma Song is saying, Field Day is coming. Has anyone ever attempted to do a tabletop game over amateur radio?
Amateur radio, wow.
No,
That's a new one on me.
I'm sure that it's been done. I mean, considering play by post has been a thing for a while,
yeah.
and Discord play, and I'm sure people used to play over the telephone. Yeah, amateur radio's got to be a thing.
So, Don, let's start with you with the venue, because I know you're switching venues for next year.
Yes. Well, the big thing with us was we wanted the convention in Battle Creek, because Battle Creek's kind of revitalizing. The cereal plants have shut down, but they're kind of bringing new business in, new ways of doing things. And we were going to be at the Kellogg Arena in 2024. And we had a last minute hiccup with the arena, and the arena had to cancel on us. So we had to cancel the convention last minute in 2024. So because at the time Battle Creek has no other convention space, there was a bunch of hotels being built at the time, where the Holiday Inn that we're going to now, they were in the progress of still building. So we ended up selecting the venue in Kalamazoo because cost was a really big factor with us, because Kalamazoo is a very expensive town. And convention space, when you get closer to the central part of Kalamazoo, 3-day convention would have cost us $25,000 for convention space. And that was just out of the question. So this was a small place right by the airport. They were really excited about having us there. So they said, listen, we'll make you a deal. Come on in. So that's kind of the reason why we chose that place. So that was the reason for the convention location.
And what about your guest list? Did you have a strategy for that, or was it just people you know, or what?
Nope, absolutely big time strategy, and that was, I wanted to target OSR. I figured it was going to be an OSR convention. Who do you invite to an OSR convention for a special guest? Well, Tim Kask, Darlene, Chris Clark, you're the Greyhawk Grognard. I mean, Greyhawk better than anybody. Rob Conley, and I just, and the Gygaxes, Heidi and Eric came. Merle Rasmussen, gentleman here in the chat that we're working together now, and that's Mark Hunt, Gangbusters guy. And we just brought these people in because we wanted to. The hope was that we'd get kind of a younger crowd showing up, and they'd be going, "Oh, who are these people? Who is Merle Rasmussen?" And we kind of got a little bit of that because people like Mark Hunt, who ran Gangbusters there, and everyone dealing with Mark and Darlene and all the special guests were just blown away by the games. Your big tabletop war game was a massive hit. But we had a big hiccup because something came up that we didn't anticipate, and that was when we did our tables. Our original table plan at the convention was a specific amount of tables. So we had all the games numbered. Everybody had their table number. Well, what they didn't tell us was, due to a fire code issue, they had to build a wall, and that was the wall that your table was supposed to be against, that double door. So they built walls. So we lost. They made part of the breakfast nook was supposed to be the gaming area. So we lost like 35 feet of gaming area.
Wow.
So our table count went down by almost a third. So it caused chaos during the convention with people going, "I'm supposed to be at table 64. Where's 64 at?" You and I dealt with it.
Yeah.
So, we did what we did, like me and you did. We picked up a table, hauled it over people's head, and set up your game. You did
Literally, we literally were taking stuff and lifting it over people's heads as they were playing another game.
Darlene was running her game, and we're lifting the table up over her game table.
Yeah, that was trippy.
But that's part of the things that you have to do with these type of conventions. It's unexpected. You have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to change real quick, and that was the whole thing with the special guests.
Mm-hmm.
You have special guests that come there, and like with special guests with us, we were like, how do we treat special guests special? We can give them a room, but then we decided, let's do another room where they could have like food and snacks and drinks that were kind of special off to them. So we provided that, and so with the new venue. The Holiday Inn that we chose, they have a very nice convention space. They have a beautiful, large gaming area. The vendor thing was a big thing for us because with the first WizardCon, we had to have vendors off into a far room, and we didn't want that. With the new convention space, vendors are going to be out in the main hallway, and to get to the gaming space or to get out of the gaming space, you're going to go through the vendors. And we're going to have some vendors also in the gaming space. And we actually used New York, or not New York, excuse me, North Texas RPG Con. I looked at Bad Mike's convention as kind of a guidebook because everybody says such high praise for North Texas.
Yeah.
I've only been there once, and yes, it is amazing.
Yep. And then I talked to Tim Kask, and me and Tim was sitting on his back porch one day talking about WizardCon before we got the 2025 date set. And he was like, "Listen, Don, don't get big. Start small. Make it intimate. It's fun that way." And so I kind of took Tim's advice, and Wampler was there, and me and Tim offered his 2 cents into it, or Jim Wampler, excuse me, did. And I was just like, you know what, they're right, because I wanted to big, I wanted to start off big, and I was like, you know what, after the first WizardCon, I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah, I agree. I agree definitely. Like, I've been to bigger conventions, and like. I think the vendor thing, like, unless you're a big convention, having the vendors right nearby, or like we had everybody, all the vendors around the perimeter of the main gaming area. And I thought that was fantastic. And I think, if you put them into a separate room with a smaller convention, I think they'd get a lot less business, a lot less traffic going in there. But in a bigger convention, you lose a lot, I think. You find, because, for example, like my convention, right? We've got one guy that's doing 3D printed terrain. We had 200 people. If you get a convention that's, 600 people, or whatever, it is, like exponentially, you're going to have more vendors that have more, of the same thing. There's going to be a lot more overlap, and then
plus
because of that, they're going to make less money.
Intimacy away,
right?
That small convention,
right?
I've been to some big conventions, and It's like Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt's going to Gen Con, which I think Mark Hunt is absolutely insane for going to Gen Con.
Is he going there as a vendor or just going?
Mark's going to go. I think Mark is going just kind of as a kind of a walker, checking it out. Mark is in the chat. He'll have to clarify, but I think Roger's right. I mean, you have to also keep in mind what's your count versus your vendor count.
Sure.
What can you sustain and such, and that was a big thing for us.
It's a different thing too. Like at least it is for me and like some of my friends. Like we'll go to PAX Unplugged, but I go to PAX Unplugged to go to the vendors. Yeah. Like that's like, I mean, I'll go and I'll game, but I go there, to look at what everybody's selling, the board games, the RPGs and their setups and all of that. It's more of like a vendor thing for me. I want to see all the companies and what they're coming out with and stuff. Yeah. It's not an intimate thing. And you're really not playing with friends or whatever, but for like a convention that I'm going to go to every year and whatnot, like, yeah, I'd rather do, a smaller convention. And that was something that, that I had to consider. Now we're at 200 people. And so hopefully we grow next year and the year after and the year after. And this venue, I don't know. Maybe 400 absolute max. I would think would be the absolute.
And that's another thing that you have to really consider. You have to look at your venue. The new venue that we have has a 425 person max capacity. So we're going to cap it at 400.
Yeah,
and that's a big thing. I mean, Roger talked about this in another vlog or another show about capping. And we just decided that we're just going to cap at 400, going to cap it at 400. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I think even at 400, that's just a nice convention.
Yeah.
Nice size.
Our hotel, the Grand Ballroom cap is 375, which I think, and Joe, feel free to jump in on this, but I can't imagine 375 gamers in that ballroom.
I mean, it was already loud. It was already loud and hard to hear people with half that.
And we're talking about pulling a couple gaming tables out of there for next year and using the auction room also as gaming, and then just rejiggering it as we need to.
Yeah. So. As a vendor, because I vended a lot of cons, even though I was a guest at guys' cons, and as a vendor. For a small con, a vendor room really doesn't work, right? Because in a smaller con, people are just there to play, and they're not likely to leave the big room where all the games are.
Right.
So having the games at the perimeter, really works in that scenario.
100%.
I've been to really small cons where all the vendors are off in a conference room, and I literally sold nothing all weekend long.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to limit traffic, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. On the other, for a big con, where they have where the dealer room is a destination.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking here specifically of something like Historicon, which I go to, which actually has a vendor building. You actually have to walk to. Oh no! Well, they used to have a vendor. They have a huge vendor room that it's its own destination. People go there.
Yeah. If you have enough people, sure, they'll go there. Yeah.
GaryCon actually did something really bizarre about this, because they used to have the vendor room right in the middle of the con.
Yeah.
And then they moved the vendor room the ass end of the hotel. It's literally a 15-minute walk to get there.
Yeah.
And it pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And they lost a few really big vendors over that too. And
they can afford to, but
they can afford to, but that's the big thing with us is, and I want people when they come to the convention to have a good experience. And that's everybody from the gamers all the way up to the vendors. And that was another reason why we opted to move out of this space. There were some technical issues with the venue. There was some other issues with the venue I can't really get into, but
I can.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to. Okay, I'll just say it. Okay, the problem that I had with this venue, and I'm not trying to create a big drama here, but we dealt with their event coordinator, who was a gamer, and he in a contract, gave us a lot of cool things and gave us a price. Everything was great. Well, he left about right around the first of the year. He left to a different hotel. 2 days before our convention started, I get a call from the general manager saying, we're not going to honor your contract. We're not comping rooms. We're not giving the room rate. We're not giving you the price we offered. We're just not going to follow the contract.
That's
2 days before the thing. So I went to them in person, and I basically told them, I said, we're going to have the con here. And he's like, no, you're not. If you're not going to give the new terms. I said, no, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have a couple hundred people at your door. I'm going to have names like Tim Cass, Darlene, and I said, Joe Block, the Greyhawk Grognard. All these people are going to be here, and I'm going to have the news here also. And in my hand, I'm going to have the original contract. So, and then the existing event coordinator, because the GM was on a phone, he wouldn't even show up for the meeting, said, we need to honor this because this is going to be a PR disaster for our hotel. So they ended up semi-honoring it. They bumped our rate a little bit. We had to pay more, but I was like, you know what? I want this convention. You know, we got to pay a couple grand more. We're going to pay a couple grand more, and because I'm not going to let the people down.
They didn't seem ready for you, at least on that first night where there was just like one person working the bar.
Yeah, and not only that, but there was other things like and not only that, but things like they were supposed to create like a special menu for us. And that didn't happen. And then they did create a special menu, but it wasn't the restaurant menu. It was just like 4 items, simplified menu. So when I went to the new hotel, I was blown with them. I told them what the problem was. And they were like, oh, no, we'll take care of you. You know, and they're like, this is really cool. The new venue is newer. It's brand new. They're really, really excited to have us there. We're gonna involve the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, into this convention. They're hopping on board. They're gonna push us. The city of Battle Creek is getting behind us because it's a game convention. They're really excited. So there's gonna be a lot of oomph behind this coming in starting in July. So that's when our new website's going live. We're actually doing we're creating a website that's gonna basically be a tabletop events.
Mm-hmm.
But Don, doesn't tabletop events already exist?
Yeah. What's that?
Doesn't tabletop events already exist and work?
Tabletop events works.
I'm sensing some inner conversation here. Let's see.
Oh,
expand on this.
This is true. I'm literally at my convention and I'm looking at other conventions going. I'm following them, and they're complaining about having issues with their logins and all that. Then Roger's commenting that he's having problems. I walk into the game room, and I'm showing Gygax as this. Heidi, I'm like, look at this shit. You know, tabletop events is breaking down on conventions that are going. And then I had to run home. I had to run to my home office to log into my account because we had some issues. And every time I tried to log into my admin, it said, you're not authorized to log in. During my convention.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, done. That's it.
We had some hiccups along the way, and like trying to set some things up is way more of a pain than it should be. And some of the, like when you go to save something and it asks you in a weird, or things are worded in like a weird way. Like, are you sure you want to go forward with this? Because you can't undo this without breaking things if you continue. And then you're like, no, wait, I got to go back and check this because this sounds serious, you know? Mm-hmm. And we had a hiccup when I went to go live with the game registration for the tickets. It worked fine when I opened pre-registration for the VIPs. But when I tried to open it for everyone, I thought I did it. And I mean, I did it. I clicked the thing and it said, are you sure this can't be undone? You're going to open sales? And I hit yes. And then I left the house. And then 20 minutes later, I'm getting messages from some of my staff that are like, look at the thing. The thing's not open. You know, ticket sales isn't open. And I go and I look on the thing and somebody posted, says, hey, I thought ticket sales were supposed to open. I'm like, so now I'm trying to do it on my phone. And I'm like, sorry, tabletop event sucks. And then I think you replied to that, Don, with some colorful words. But it's true. And then I'm trying to get it on my phone, which the site is, kind of a pain to use as it is. And then on a phone,
because it's not originally designed to handle
Right.
tabletop events where you have multiple.
Sure.
I can tell you what the problem with the site is. It was probably originally some type of wedding venue software.
Sure.
And what they've just done is they just kind of cobbled in the back end.
Tack on. Yeah. They just keep tacking on stuff. Yeah.
And it's like, what you really need to do is you need to really take it and fine, keep your site up and running, but open up a test server, put a dev site on,
build
and
something
develop
else while you're doing it. Sure.
Exactly. And they don't want to invest as my friend Steve puts it, dev hours. And
there's that is not limited to them. I can guarantee you.
Sure.
There's some websites I use.
I get it.
Dude, you hire another developer. I'm begging you.
But what you're doing with tabletop events is doing right now to themselves is they're basically inviting competition. They're basically daring someone to create something better and more smooth.
And no one has.
That's right.
And it's funny because two of the big cons that I go to, Page and Historicon, they switched to it from their own systems.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for me anyway, like it's there. It mostly works. Like, you don't have to have an IT guy on staff, like if something goes wrong for the most part. So, I mean, it's nice to just be able to use an existing thing, even if it
outsource things
work
absolutely.
perfect.
And it has a lot to do with if you have the skill set and you have access to people with the skill set. And I do programming. Sure. I do PHP programming and C++ and HTML and ASAP. Yeah. I've got a friend, Steve, who's on our Thursday night show. He is a tier 4 manager for Liquid Web, a major server who hosts our server. So I have server capability. I have the ability to program it. I can involve him if I have to, plus other people I know. So, and that's what we're doing. We're just going to go ahead and we're just going to redo a site for WizardCon. And then that's going to be just kind of internally used by us. And right around the first of the year, we're going to flip it over and make it where we have everybody can use it. But
I'm an IT project manager, so I just tell all the programmers what to do.
Yeah, exactly. So, you get dev hours perfectly. Then you get the whole.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
I want to go back to something you said about the venue and pricing and everything, because one of the comments here. How do you actually fund this kind of convention? Do you have sponsors? How do you raise the money to rent space? And I think this is exactly relevant to what you were saying, Don, and I know you both have something to say about this. So, what's how do you do? I mean, you just put it on your credit card, or how does that work?
I think Don and I both cut open a vein and gave a lot of blood to the blood god, and basically made it happen that way.
You basically have two choices, I think. Either it depends on your venue, because a lot of what does your venue want? Does your venue want to be paid up front? Does your venue want to be paid within 2 weeks afterwards? Every venue is different, so it all depends on your front end cost. That's the first step. Our venue basically said X amount of dollars down, and then we want to be paid right before the convention starts. So we just decided, no, we're just going to pay it all out of our pocket. So it comes out of your pocket, and then you hope you get the back end support of people who want to sponsor it. Your vendor tables helps, pay for it. And then also the ticket sales. So it all ends up at the last day. You find out the day of the con, how it all washes out.
Yeah. I was basically putting everything on my credit card, and my buddy who kind of pushed me into this, he basically said he'd split the loss with me. So, so that was fantastic. But I put it on a credit card, and then as sales came in, I'd, go and maybe pay some down on the venue and then make the credit card payment, and then, go just kind of keep doing that. But I mean, it's a risk, when you're going to do it.
Absolutely.
To be, several $1,000s out, but I mean, even at the worst with the vendors I had coming in and the way I figured it, I would lose probably, I was expecting to lose $2,000 and I was okay with that.
Yep. My wife is in chat, I see.
Yeah.
I saw that. I thought I'd put it up there for
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to say something, and I'm not doing this just because she's in the other room. Having my wife involved, and she's a teacher, but my wife is a very analytical thinker. She's a very detail oriented individual, and to have her kind of like behind me going, oh, don't forget this, don't forget that, because I got a lot on my plate to begin with, and
Sure.
So having people partnered with is really important also. And then also just the community support. And I'm just going to put it bluntly, you were out there pushing WizardCon, Joe, and other channels, 10 Car from 10 Cars Tavern was out there pushing it. Tom of Roll from Tabletop Tap Room was. I can just go on and on. The people that took the time to have us on the show, push our logo, push our channel. Me and Roger kind of got together and we co-shared our conventions. So a lot of it has to do with people like you, Joe. The community involvement is very, very important.
Well, from my perspective, I'm a guest. You're paying my room. You're paying. I couldn't talk either of you into giving me a bar tab, but
because I know you, Joe.
Well, yeah, that's a slippery.
But I owe you. I feel like I owe you something. That's why I wanted to play games all. I was running games all the time. I wanted to give you as much as I possibly could to.
Oh, and you did.
Pay my way.
Well, and not only that, but you have to have the problem. You have to have to deal with the problems because, like, you showed up at the convention. We're in the car on the way, and you're messaging me going, "They don't have my room, Don." Remember that? And I was like,
I remember that. Yes.
The hell they don't have your room. And I got there, and what happened? We fixed it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you were great. It worked out great.
But that's Roger, what you got to be able to do. Is you got to think on your feet. And anyone starting a convention, this is my bit of wisdom to you. Do it first of all. If you're thinking about starting a game convention, do it. Number two, be prepared for problems. It's not going to go smooth. You're going to have hiccups.
Sure.
So just take them in stride, take them one at a time, and just deal with them one at a time.
Yeah.
Roger, you had something you wanted to.
I was going to say, Joe, if I covered your bar tab, I'd have to cover Tenkar's bar tab.
Yeah.
As well. And
between the two of us.
Yeah.
That'll work.
I didn't want that to happen. So, yeah.
But it's funny. A tale of two bars, though. Let me just set this stage here.
Yeah.
Because at WizardCon, there was this dinky little bar.
Yep.
With one person doing everything, running the food.
Yeah.
Doing the drinks.
Yeah, it really pissed me off seeing that because that's not what it was.
It was nice, but my God, she was way over her head.
Mm-hmm.
And then at Central New York, it was like the opposite because they had this huge bar and it was full of townies on both nights because they would bring in. They had I guess ladies' night. It was like Cougars' night.
Friday was Saturday, karaoke,
and they were doing karaoke on Friday. Yeah. And my God, I didn't want to go in there because I was afraid I might break a vow.
And that was a big influence on us
my will.
Convention also because of the promises broken, it made the experience for our guests not quite what I want it to be. Yeah. So we found out about the Battle Creek location. We went there, and it's just it's night and day for us. So, and plus the location, in case you don't want to have hotel food, where we're at, literally walking, you're within a 10-minute walk of a dozen places, and driving, you're within a 5-minute drive of probably 30, 40 places. Everything from Starbucks on down. So,
unfortunately, one of those places was the Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers.
Was it a Roy Rogers? No, it was an Arbys.
Oh, you're talking about Kalamazoo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting Arbys, wasn't it?
My God.
Right by the airport.
That was an experience, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know, Roger, you guys had your food options were great because the restaurant in the hotel.
Yeah. They were coming out
really
with
good job.
Things. Yeah. Well, they were the hotel was fantastic. I can't say a lot of bad about the hotel, but they they had told me originally the bar is only open on Saturday from 4 o'clock on, and Sunday they're closed. And I told them, this was months out. I said, well, I'm going to make a list of places, and you're going to have 30, 40 DoorDash deliveries coming in, asking where to go, and you're just going to leave money on the table. And they opened up from noon to 4, just to basically cater, lunch for us. And they
had somebody in the game room walking around, taking orders, and they would deliver table stock.
Yeah.
Berrycon does that too, which I thought was a great thing. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And it worked out great, and it's decent priced, and the food was decent. I didn't have anything that I ate that was like bad or or anything. Everything was really good.
And on Sunday they got rid of all the fish, so it was.
And they I think they did very well in that. I used that as a little bit of leverage to get some more stuff out of them for next year. So.
And that's really good because you're partnering with them. You say you're going to make more money if you open up open up the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was at North Texas a couple of years ago, the only time I went, they actually kept the bar open later than it's supposed to be open.
Yeah.
And I talked to the bartender the next night, and he said, "Yeah, we made about $1,000 extra in that 90 minutes."
Yeah.
Because gamers tend to be high-end drinkers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I like, as far as the venue goes, we just parking, I thought was fantastic. I mean, there's plenty of room to park. The doors are right there. I mean, just everything I think was great.
Whoever the receptionist was at the on Friday when I got there, that's like the friendliest hotel desk I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just like over the top friendly.
Yeah. No, they were just fantastic. Yeah. And even Tenkar on his stream was raving about the internet speed, because he was able to stream from the hotel without having to set up a hotspot, because he was getting, I think, 102 meg or something speed. So
I had a little problem, but I sorted it out eventually. So let's talk about lessons learned, because obviously, everything doesn't go well. We've talked about a few things that have gone wrong on Don's end, and things that you're gonna have hiccups. But if you had one or two lessons learned that you would want to pass on to other convention people, what would that be? Like, what are you going to do different next time?
Wow. Well, you kind of mentioned earlier about the noise in the game room, and that I think I didn't think the noise was. I wasn't playing, so I was running around, But I think between the rug and the drop ceiling that they have in there, I didn't think the noise levels were, unexpected. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, you get a bunch of gamers in a room together, and I think there's other conventions and things that are, have more open spaces where the noise bounces around more. And I'm kind of hesitant to remove any more than like one or two game tables from the area, because I don't want everybody to be in separate rooms. I don't want to have like 3 game tables in every room. So I think the noise, we can kind of deal with some of that and still have, everybody gaming in one area. It's so, I don't know,
curtains around the edge, that'll help it too.
Yeah, just help absorb the sound and whatnot. We just need all of our vendors to be like Emperor's Choice and bring 8-foot tall banners go around the thing. Or I can just probably have Emperor's Choice just get a bunch of banners to wrap around the entire thing. I'm sure they would love that. But some of my things that I learned were, I need to learn to delegate better, because I don't, it's very difficult for me to like let go and say, hey, do this thing without me, being over someone's shoulder or whatever. Cause I just feel it had to be perfect. And so there's that. And then I had an issue where like doing the graphics and doing like the logo for the t-shirts and like things like that, where I just spent so much time just trying, moving stuff around a little, little by little, increasing and decreasing the font size and the letter spacing and, how thick the lines were and like every little thing like that. And, I think I could have done less of that, and it still would have been fine. And so that's on me. That's, I got to try and do better with that stuff.
Mhm.
And I think my input would be is planning. Do not do things at the last minute. There's a reason why conventions stop ticket sales online 10 days, 14 days, a month out. Take a look at other successful conventions are doing and kind of take a look at one that's about your size and kind of use them as a template, I think. But, delegation also, get more volunteers. You have to cater to what happens if someone who signed up for a bunch of games doesn't show up.
Yeah.
So you got gamers showing up who have signed up for a table for a game and the DM hasn't showed up. So
I heard that was an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea behind this for us is get things done earlier, if possible, months earlier. Like get your merch done. Get your merch done months before and out of the way. Get your ticket sales stopped, not at the last minute. Do not wait to visit your venue. Keep always going to your venue. Make sure there's no changes. Make sure there's no issues at the venue.
Yeah.
And another thing is, and the big one, bottom line is I don't care if your venue says you're guaranteed next year, get it in writing.
Sure.
Get that contract done immediately, because with hotels, they'll guarantee you the spot, but if someone comes in and says, I got cash right now, here's my credit card, I need it for that date, you're SOL. So, that's the big thing that you got to also do. So, and delegation, let go.
Yeah. Yes.
Get your volunteers involved.
It's funny you mentioned going back to make sure. I think I drove the lady at the hotel nuts because I went back and I would go and I took pictures of all the rooms, and I've got my tape measure and I've got my laser, measuring tool, and I like measured everything. I jot down a layout of the room. I did it in SketchUp, and I got tables and measuring those out. And then I take that, print that out, and go there with a buddy of mine and like move tables around that they had there. And I did that, I don't know, like 8 times until I was finally like, okay, I got to stop like doing like this is finally like, okay. But I was so nervous. Like on paper, it's hard to tell how much space you need. That was another big thing with me. And is I needed to make sure that there was enough space between the tables to walk. Because that's like been an issue with smaller conventions for me.
That's always been
you can't get across the game. Like you have to scoot around the outside, and obviously it's hard when you're trying to get as much as you can in one space. But I think we did a decent job at leaving space between and around the tables, so you can walk around. There were a couple tight spots, but I think pulling out 2 tables from the game room will help with the spacing and the noise level. So
let's take it the opposite. What went perfectly that maybe you were a little worried about, and you ended up this was a nothing burger.
You want to take that, John? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to sound like I'm averting the question, trying to avoid it, but in general, the entire convention went far better than what I thought it would. I'm getting told by other convention organizers all these horror stories. And really the only real problems that we had at the convention was the table issue. We got around that. But overall, I think just things went well. People seemed happy. We didn't have any disorderly people there. So that went perfect for us. And again, just everybody having, we were getting lot of people were reaching out to us after the con as they were walking out, shaking our hand. Thank you very much. You had to leave a little bit early, sadly, but again, shit happens, And with us, it was
That's been a
just
13-hour drive. So
yes, and I understood that, and that's the thing. You have So as far as things that went perfect, I think just overall, you have to take everything in totality and say, did the convention run well or did it not? And I think overall, the convention went very well for us.
Mm-hmm.
I was from a year out, slowly getting more, like, my anxiety levels were just slowly creeping, and I got to like the 2-week mark, and I think I hit like peak anxiety, and I just stayed there for until, and then it was Saturday morning. It was I can remember the moment, and it was Saturday morning. It was about 10:30. And gaming, we opened the doors at 9. Gaming started at 10, and 10:30, like, the rush at the door had calmed down. Everybody was inside. All the vendors were set up. Everybody's inside gaming, and people are shopping. And I looked around, and everybody's smiling. Everybody's having a good time. And I just like took it all in for like, a minute. And at that point, my anxiety went away, and I was like, holy crap. This is actually happening. And like, I did this, and like, it was amazing. And I knew at that point that there would be a next year and a following year. And even if I lost money, I'm like, I'm in this. I'm in this for the long haul, because this made it all worth it, no matter what it cost me.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, at the risk of, please feel free to tell me to buzz off. Did you guys lose money, make money, break even? Just and again, feel free to tell me. It's none of my business.
No, that's fine. At the end of the day, we would have made a little bit of money, but because of the last minute deal with the venue and the GM trying to change things and basically kind of put me up against a corner, we basically broke even, which to me, I'm happy with. We didn't lose money.
Yeah. Same. So I was worried that we were going to be about $2,000 in the red. And then between the walk-ins that we got after that, and as people walked in all day, they were coming in all day, and I didn't expect people coming in still Saturday afternoon. Between that and the auction, we broke even. It was fantastic. I'm maybe $100 or so in the black, but I mean, that's nothing. That's just going to next year, and and I'll put more into it.
Because I was told by a couple different. I was at TotalCon, and I was on a panel at TotalCon talking about conventions, and a couple other convention organizers said, "Get prepared. You're not making money. You're going to lose money your first convention."
I've heard that too. First year you lose money, and I was content to.
Yeah, and we were prepared for
it. It just, we got the turnout, and it was just. It was fantastic,
Yeah.
Just
now, Roger, I know you were on TV. Your fan made it.
I was on TV. Yeah, the local television station showed up because they wanted to figure out what the heck is going on, and they did an interview, and I got a face for TV. Apparently, I don't know. It's. I didn't think so, but maybe this is what they're looking for. I don't know, but no,
got my hand, and they got a whole bunch of my miniatures.
They went around. They took a bunch of pictures and some video of some stuff, and the Arduin painted mini display. That's like the post picture there, the main picture on the post. But yeah, so they came out and they gave us a little, that they came out Sunday morning, I think. But yeah, we got on the news, so got that far at least. When
that's good.
And so, we keep talking about the Arduin thing.
Yeah,
this is what it looks like, and this is only part of it. My camera wasn't wide enough.
Yeah, that's nice.
To see this. I mean, on the right side, they had racks of miniatures. On the left side, they had rolls of posters of the maps. I mean, it was
Yeah.
unbelievable what this thing
Yeah.
was like.
Nice.
Yeah. Being there next to it, that picture doesn't do it justice. Those are, I mean, those are 8 foot tall, those banners. And I think, the middle one, I think, is like 8 feet wide,
Yeah,
maybe. And then the other ones are 4 foot wide each.
and those maps. I mean, you walk 2 inches from them, and you're still seeing new stuff on
Yeah.
those maps.
And
It's
it is gorgeous. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And that the map on the left there is like a zoomed in section of the one on the right.
And
And
it's
you can
just
see
like
the
this
stuff.
four
It's
by six
amazing.
inch section of the other map, but it's
Yeah.
zoomed up to this
Yeah.
huge thing.
Yeah, because you could see that kidney shaped lake.
Yeah.
And it's like this little tiny thing on the one map. And then and there it's blown up. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah,
It is fantastic.
I used to get I got all the Arduin stuff way back in the day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I didn't play Arduin, but I would rob stuff out of Arduin all the time out of the LBBs.
Sure. A lot of cool stuff.
I still have some. I still have some of the stuff, and it's phenomenal. That is the origin of the vacuous grimoire in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
Cool.
Because Gary hated Arduin, so he put the vacuous grimoire in there because it was called the Arduin grimoire.
We're
nice.
we're working with them for some stuff for next year. There's some plans that are going to go on. So
Yeah, I know they're talking about they're doing the actual RPG. I
Yeah.
told them I'd help
Yeah.
them with that if they just holler. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they made that public or not yet. I know we were talking about it, but
yeah, they were we
cool.
did a video and I think they mentioned it.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Yeah, nice.
so
Yeah.
last words of wisdom on cons for people. I mean, we're after enough. We don't have to stop now, but
Wow.
I would just
words of
have
wisdom.
I would just say, if you're going to do it, if you're planning it, you want to do it, do it. I mean, just do it.
Yeah.
Don't second guess yourself. Don't second guess the turnout. If you have it, they will come.
Yeah, do it, but also, don't, how to put this, like do it, but don't go broke doing it. No, I'm like half kidding, but like, that's, I get it. Be passionate and do what you're going to do. But
Start small.
I figured out how much money I could lose in the beginning and said, I'm okay with losing about $2,000. And my buddy said he'd split the loss with me. So I said, okay, if I do this, the whole thing, the venue and the advertisements and everything was going to cost a little over $6,000. I think it was like $6,200 or whatever. So I figured, okay, at the least, I got to try and bring in, $2,000. So if I can get 10 vendors and 100 people to show up, I can come close. I could come close to doing that. And if less people show up and and so I think that's important. But yeah, I mean, definitely do it, but do a small thing. If you can do 50 people and rent a room and
Sure.
and just start that way, if that's all you can do, I think you can do it. Get advertised somewhere. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that'd be involved and love to put $20 in a pot, and you can rent a room for a day at a hotel,
And involve your local gaming, your local gaming, clubs and stores. That was our biggest problem.
Oh yeah.
We had in Kalamazoo, there's 4 game stores in Kalamazoo. Every single one of them refused to carry our advertisements.
Really?
Because we were a first-year convention.
Wow.
So we were like, all we want to do is hang up a little 8.5 by 11 piece of paper up in your gaming area, and none of them would have anything to do with it.
So we had
now they want to.
Most of the game stores they advertised for us. We had a couple that wouldn't, and they had to check with people or whatever, and then they didn't. And then there was a bigger game store that told me that they don't advertise for any events that aren't their own, because they've had issues in the past where people thought they were associated with something that ended up turning bad. And you know, so they don't so they don't help out the community anymore. I guess I don't know what the
It's really
I don't
weird
want
too,
to but
because you think that they're a game, you're a game shop. There's a game
Right.
convention, and we even offered them. We said, "Listen, make you a deal. You do this and this, we'll give you a free table." And they were just like, "Nope."
Sure.
But of the
Dang.
4, 3 have reached out to us now saying, "Oh, we would love to come to your convention now." You know,
Yeah.
So-
I've gotten some of that where people are like, yeah, well, oh yeah, we're interested. We'll come now. Then now they're contacting me.
mhm.
You know, where you couldn't talk to people before, but
Yeah. And maybe it's just
it
the
is,
validity of it.
and I've had every single one of my vendors have said that they want back. Every single one of them said they did fantastic, and that they want in next year. Even Joe said that he'd love to come back, and we'd love to have you, Joe. So
I'll be back to both of yours, and I'll have more mini stuff.
Yeah, you got set up this year.
And
people seem to like it.
Bring your goods.
Although at Central New York, I had some of the guys from my minis game played in the Castlemount Archmage afterwards, and my God, we were just laughing our asses off on Saturday night. You mentioned that, Roger. It was like we were just like carrying the whole room.
Yeah.
It helped that they were buying me beer.
Well, there you go. No, it was a blast, and I don't think there's really anything like I said, Saturday morning, like once everything started, I think everything was fine. There we really didn't run into anything major. We had a couple GMs that no call, no showed type of situation, and I had a couple people that stepped up. One guy who was I forget his name. He was in a group and the GM didn't show up, and he had the game up on his phone. He said, "Well, this doesn't seem like it's that hard. The rules were available for free online." And he was like, "Yeah, this doesn't seem that hard. I'll just run it." So
Bloodworth did that, right?
So he ran.
That was the
That
Bloodworth,
wasn't
right?
who I was talking about, but
okay.
There was another game next. I think it was next to his.
Because I know Ron did the auction last minute.
Ron did the auction. No. Ron he signed up for the auction ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we had another GM that bailed, and one of the Arduin guys, it's like their nephew, I think, or something. I'm not sure. He offered to run a game. He was able to do it. So that was fantastic.
Right.
But that's it. Yeah. Very small, issues. The community, and it's been mentioned, like the gaming community is great. And everybody's just really willing to just help out.
Absolutely.
And just do what they can. Even Tenkar offered to show up a day early and move tables, yeah. And I'm like,
Eric and Rach are top notch.
And I'm like,
absolutely.
you're a guest. I don't want guests having to do manual labor for me. Like,
listen to him, Don. He doesn't want the guests moving tables.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Well, especially me. We were in there Thursday, and I had like 6 people and in the main ballroom, and we must have moved every single table in there a foot in every direction at one point or another, where I'm just like, no, this one's got to go this way a little bit, and this one's got to go that way a little, just trying to make it perfect. And and my guys did it. My staff, they were completely with me. They knew I was like a nervous wreck, and we made it happen. And everybody's just been wonderful. The vendors, the guests, the staff, the players, people that showed up, everybody's just fantastic. And
I tell you, I had a blast at both of your conventions, even with minor hiccups here and there. Well, that's why I wanted to do this, is because within 6 weeks of each other, you both put on a great first time OSR con, and you were kind enough to involve me in it. And this was, I had a great time at both of your.
We appreciate you coming. We really do.
Yeah.
And I will be at both your cons next year. I
would love to get out to WizardCon, and it's like 13 hours.
Bit of
I
a
get
drive.
it, man. We're drive. We're Michigan. Central
Oh.
Michigan. So, and we're in a weird spot because all if you notice, like all the cons are on the East Coast or like down the kind of south swipe.
Yeah.
Besides Gary Con, I mean, we're kind of like a unique,
Yeah.
especially in the glove, in Michigan. So,
Yeah.
but it's needed. So that's what
I
we're
did
doing.
this. I did this so I didn't have to go anywhere. Everyone can
That's
come to me
right.
now.
Yeah, I'm actually later this year because I screwed up my North Texas con this year. I thought I had submitted my application to be a vendor, and I didn't, so I screwed it
Oh.
up. So to make up for that, I'm actually going to a con down in Orlando, in September or October. So if I couldn't do a 2-day drive to Texas, I'm doing a 2-day drive to Florida.
Yeah. Oh, 2-day drive. I could. I'm like a 6-hour drive. Like
I
that's
can do
about
13
my
hours in a
limit.
day, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
my limit.
crazy.
But I've got the XM radio. I'm good to go. It just you get into that
Yeah.
into the rhythm of the road.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Doesn't long drives like that don't bother me at all. So so I
They
am gonna.
they start to get to me. Just the
Mhm.
body. The body's getting older, and like a six
Oh,
hour
I hear you.
drive. 6-hour drive. I got to stop after like 4 hours and get out and stretch, and then I could make it the next two. If I go, a 12 hours, the first 4 hours I got to stop, but then I got to stop after 2 hours, and then it's like every couple hours, and I just,
It's like a
man, 13
logarithmic
hours.
progression. It's slow.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
smaller interval each time.
Yep.
Right. And
Every
then
10
before you
minutes
know
he's
it, your
stopping.
brakes are longer than the time you could drive for. It's but no, we like we talked about going out to Gary Con, again, and driving. We flew the last time, which I hate flying. The whole, just everything about it sucks, but I don't know, we talked about driving like 4 people and splitting it, a few hours a piece and doing it in one day. And I don't know, that might work, but maybe we should talk about going to WizardCon and
Yeah, me and
getting 3
Tina's
or 4.
making it out to Central New York next time. We talked about it already. We're going to make it there.
Yeah,
So,
well,
I'll see
we
you
would
both at
love
Page,
to
right?
have you.
Philadelphia
yes.
one.
We'd love to have
Yep.
you. I'm planning on being down there. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Well, guys, thank you
we'll
both.
see.
This
Unless
has
the
been
weather
really
goes crazy.
fantastic.
Thank
I've
you.
learned a lot. So thank you
Yeah.
both.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say, or
No, I just our convention's website, wizardcon.org, will be up here probably in the next couple weeks. We're fine tuning it now, and then we're going to open up our badge sales and open up the ability for people to start signing up then. So
okay?
Yeah,
And Roger?
same here. We did. I'm in the process of duplicating the convention on tabletop, and eventually we'll get that straightened out and working properly. And that should be up in the next couple weeks or so. CNYRPGcon.com, I think,
Excellent.
should go there.
And obviously, I will hump both your cons on my socials and on the channel.
we
So
appreciate it, Joe.
Yeah,
everybody, if you've been enjoying this on my YouTube channel, please give it a thumbs up. If you've been watching it, it's on Don's channel.
Yep.
Please give it a thumbs up there, and wherever you're watching it, thumbs it up, and subscribe, all that good stuff. Hope you've enjoyed the conversation as much as I have, and I will see you all later. And everybody, Don,
Joe, thank
Roger,
you.
everyone, stay safe from